Three wealthy brothers mock a strawberry seller, but then discover she's their long-lost sister of 15. Jake, Tom, and Evan strolled through the farmer's market, their laughter ringing out like a persistent bell of privilege. The townsfolk moved out of their way, faces painted with a mix of envy and resentment. As they approached Lucy's shabby stall adorned with vibrant strawberries, Jake couldn't help but sneer. "Look at this dreamer," he scoffed, gesturing toward Lucy, who was busy tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, unbothered by their ridicule. Lost in her fantasies. Tom and Evan chimed in, mocking her humble setup as Lucy stood tall, a serene smile etched across her face. Little did they know, beneath that calm exterior lay a story of courage and sacrifice, a truth they would never suspect. "Can you believe these people?" Jake murmured, rounding the corner, the scent of strawberries mixing with his contempt. He felt a familiar pride swell within him, a conviction that their family's legacy was impeccable, built, after all, on their father's South real estate empire. The world outside their bubble became an unworthy distraction. But a nagging voice deep within him echoed doubts about his detachment from the town and its people who struggled to make ends meet while they glided through life in luxury. Days turned to weeks as Jake's arrogance consumed his thoughts, erasing any empathy for those beneath their social standing. Yet, in the recesses of his mind, he silently wrestled with an underlying fear. What if their wealth was as hollow as the glitz suggested? What if their dreams could crumble like a house of cards? He brushed these fears aside, preferring to drown in distractions rather than confront them. Then came the day everything changed. A real estate deal gone south ignited a flame of chaos in Jake's life, shattering his carefully constructed facade. Anxiety gripped him, knotting his stomach as he tasted the bitterness of failure for the first time. The ramifications echoed louder than mockery ever could, dragging him into a spiral of regret. He became a quiet storm, retreating into himself, haunted by every wrong decision and every flippant remark made at Lucy's expense. Before he could ease his troubled conscience, fate led him to the town hall one evening. He accidentally wandered into a gathering where Lucy was being celebrated for her unyielding dedication to the community. As Lucy recounted her story of resilience, her voice clear and unwavering, tears brimmed in Jake's eyes, not out of sorrow for himself, but from an awakening of guilt and shame. Recognition flickered beneath the surface, a distant memory teasing his mind but remaining just out of reach. The applause around him faded into a dull roar, blurring the lines between social status and human connection. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just then, a twist of fate emerged. An unexpected message arrived in his inbox about ancestry testing results revealing a shocking truth: his family history intertwined with Lucy's. How had they missed this? The disbelief crashed over him, forcing him into an emotional whirlwind. They weren't just mocking her, they were mocking their own flesh and blood. Each brother confronted his own demons. Now Tom's disdain morphed into guilt, while Evan wrestled with the looming weight of regret. As they stood there, the world they once reveled in started to unravel, forcing Jake to confront the paradox of their lives. Can they mend the rift created by arrogance and reconnect with the sister they never knew they had? The question hung heavy in the air, a storm brewing on the horizon as they faced a choice that could either bridge or irrevocably widen the gap between family and pride. The weeks that followed were marked by an uncomfortable silence. Jake found himself grappling with conflicting emotions. As he sat alone in his sleek office overlooking the cityscape, the weight of the reality that Lucy was his sister pressed against him like a heavy shroud. Each moment spent in the company of his brothers only amplified the guilt simmering below the surface. Their laughter felt like a distant echo, a stark reminder of the mockery they once cast upon her. Determined to delve deeper, Jake began researching Lucy's life. Each click of his keyboard felt like an intrusion, yet he could not stop himself. He discovered stories of her grit and determination, her efforts to uplift not only herself but those around her. He saw images of her with smiling children at a local charity event, hands covered in paint as she led workshops in the community. Each detail magnified his shame, transforming it into a driving force. He was fueled by a new unyielding desire to reconnect, to apologize, to mend what had been broken. Jake decided to approach Tom and Evan. The gravity of surrendering their privilege hung heavy in the air when he finally spoke. "What if we reached out to her?" he proposed, the tremor in his voice revealing the uncertainty he felt. Tom scoffed at first, clinging to anger like a buoy in the storm. But beneath the surface, Jake noticed glimmers of introspection flash across Tom's face. "Why now?" Tom challenged. "Because we're related? Because you feel guilty?" There was a harshness in his tone, almost protective of their fragile connection still tethered to arrogance and material wealth. "Because she's our sister," Jake replied, his voice steadier than it felt. "We owe her that at the very least." Evan, meanwhile, stayed silent, visibly caught in his own turmoil. Jake's conviction had stirred something deep within him, forcing him to confront the haunting specter of regret that lingered since that fateful day at the market. What had he become? The brother who turned his back on family for a false sense of superiority? That night, Jake stared at the message on his phone, lingering over the latest photo Lucy had shared, showing her standing proud amid a field of ripe strawberries. Something in her gaze struck him. It was a look of fulfillment, as if she were content with her purpose, a stark contrast to the discontent gnawing at his soul. Compelled by an urgency he had not felt in years, he began crafting a message. The words started slow and stilted, but as he continued, something liberated him from the chains of his past arrogance. He penned heartfelt apologies, acknowledged his ignorance, and expressed a desire to build a bridge between them. These were not just words, they were a manifestation of his evolution, a declaration of his commitment to reclaim his identity as her brother. But in the same moment, fear crept in. What if she rejected his overture? What if there was no way to create trust after so long? The possibility of being met with disdain haunted him as he hovered over the send button. Still doubting but growing through his hesitation, Jake took a deep breath. "It's time to confront the past," he whispered to himself, clicking send. As the message disappeared into the digital void, he felt a change within him, a liberation perhaps. They had sown seeds of discord, but the chance to grow something new, something rooted in authenticity, now lay in Lucy's hands. Little did he know, Lucy's response would not just reveal her own feelings but would also become a major turning point for all three brothers. Days rolled by with a suffocating tension. Each morning, Jake awoke to the same dull ache of anxiety, sliding into the outer edges of his mind like a familiar, unwelcome shadow. His phone remained silent, the anticipation of Lucy's response riddling him with impatience. He combated the doubts that surged through him. What if she viewed his message as a desperate act of guilt rather than a genuine olive branch? He had opened up a part of himself that had long been barred, and now it teetered precariously on the edge of rejection. In the boardroom that week filled with familiar faces and the smell of fresh coffee, Jake felt like an imposter in his own life. He forced smiles and engaged in conversations, but his mind raced with thoughts of Lucy. He pictured her in that strawberry field, pouring passion and effort into her work. The contrast was jarring against his own world of finance and skyscrapers. It felt more and more distant every day. "Jake?" Tom's voice cut through his preoccupation. "You with us?" Shaking his head slightly, Jake refocused. "Sorry, just had a lot on my mind," he mumbled, his ears still faintly resonating with whispers of disdain shared over family dinners, jabs thrown at the sister who was forever a disappointment. "Work, then," Evan added, and his tone held a note of irritation. "This isn't the time for distractions." It triggered a storm inside Jake. Were they still incapable of seeing? He, too, had compartments carved out of emotions, yet theirs were neatly stacked in denial. After the meeting, he found solace in a quiet corner of the office, battling the rising tide of frustration. He delved into moments of vulnerability and regret. How could he be a man of integrity, running away from what truly mattered? It dawned on him, his professional life had ballooned around him, an artificial construct buoyed by success and status. The realities of his family crumbled beneath that lavish weight. One afternoon, plowing through another report on his desk, Jake's phone vibrated aggressively. The notification that exploded in his chest stole the air from his lungs. Lucy had responded. His heart raced as he opened her message, the screen illuminating like a lighthouse guiding him through turbulent seas. "Jake," it started, a measured tone that resonated with caution. "Your message stirred a lot of feelings. I didn't expect it." His heart thudded in his chest. Immediately, he began dissecting her words. There they were, the hesitations laced in every sentence, the walls she had likely built to shield herself from more pain. He felt a surge of determination. It was all or nothing. This was his chance to dismantle those walls. He opened his reply with care, pulling from the depths of his newfound vulnerability. This time, he didn't rush. He took moments to craft each sentence, embracing the weight of every word. He shared his confusion and commitment, expressing his desire to walk this journey with her, no more hiding behind their privilege or apathy. He spoke of their shared history, one they had both carried differently, adorned with scars, yet deserving of acknowledgement. As he hit send, something profound shifted again within him. This wasn't merely about reconciling with Lucy. It was about confronting the image he had of himself, a man not defined by wealth, but by relationships that mattered. With this fresh perspective, Jake sat in the evaluation of the moments to come. Would they build a new dynamic, or were they destined to repeat the past? The worry began to churn again. Maybe all this reflected a deeper truth for him, for Tom, and for Evan. But the door was open now, and as he captured the flicker of hope nestled somewhere in his heart, he felt the realization settling in. The time had come to face the consequences of their actions, collectively and individually, a confrontation with not only Lucy but against the ideals they had held onto for too long. Little did he know, Evan had overheard part of the conversation from earlier, and for him, this revelation would spark a decision that would change everything. Jake's phone buzzed once more, interrupting his thoughts. He glanced at the screen, half hoping for a reply from Lucy, but the notification was from Tom. A forwarded article on market trends. The weight of his responsibilities settled back over him like a heavy blanket, reminding him once again of the expectations that tethered him to his corporate life. Determined not to let that overshadow his newfound clarity, Jake returned to the thoughts swirling in his mind. He had opened up to Lucy, and he pondered what that meant, not just for their relationship but for the person he wanted to become. Engaging with his feelings around Lucy, while daunting, allowed him to reflect on the gap between who he was and who he aspired to be. He recalled their childhood moments, memories where laughter prevailed over the chaos of familial expectations. The tension had always been present, but it was now palpable in a way he hadn't fully appreciated. He felt compelled to redefine their dynamic. Was it possible to reconcile their past while emerging as a stronger individual? The next day at the office, Jake arrived early, armed with determination. He fired through reports but couldn't shake the urgency plaguing his thoughts. He needed to confront what had been salvaged from their early bond. It was the anchor to his moral compass. Yet, a deeper conflict bubbled. He couldn't shake the resentment for his environment that continually sought to shape him into someone unrecognizable. "Jake, got a minute?" Evan's voice sliced through the morning calm, carrying the weight of an unspoken tension. His tone urged caution. "Sure," Jake said, bracing himself for a confrontation. He turned away from his monitor, adopting an open posture. "What was that conversation about with Lucy?" Evan pressed, eyeing him intently. The question hung in the air, raw and demanding an answer. Jake hesitated, the desire to protect his vulnerabilities clashing with the instinct to be honest. It was, about our past, he managed. I want to have a conversation about things we've pushed to the side. It's important. He gauged Evan's reaction, feeling every word stretch the fabric of their carefully constructed bond. Important or reckless? Evan snapped, then softened his gaze. Look, I'm not saying it shouldn't matter. But we've worked hard to build what we have. Diving into family drama can jeopardize that. Jake wrestled with the disparity of values laid out before him. Did professional success outweigh personal relationships? Maybe what we've built isn't as solid as we think if we can't address the foundations, Evan. Lucy matters. Our family matters. Evan's expression shifted momentarily as if the walls he had constructed began to tremble. You're willing to risk everything for her? For my relationship with her? Yes. For my peace of mind? Absolutely, Jake replied with newfound conviction. As Evan studied him, Jake felt the weight of the moment. Faced with a choice, Evan turned away, battling his own fears and uncertainties. Think about it, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. The repercussions of what you're doing could change everything for you and for us. Once alone, Jake sank into his chair, staring blankly at the computer screen. A storm of emotions roiled inside him, clarity flickered just out of reach. Was he prepared to face whatever that would mean? He took a deep breath, grounding himself as he made a decision. It was time to reach deeper into the past for the clarity he desperately craved. Jake knew he had to initiate a discussion with Lucy, but the larger conversation loomed. He was stepping into the unknown, ready to challenge the roles established by both family and society. As he prepared to reach out, cracks began to surface in his constructed reality, calling into question the very essence of who he was becoming. Little did he know, Evan had decided on a course of action. It would set off a chain of events that would force them to confront the legacy of their choices together. Jake's heart raced. Would he stand firm in this unraveling reality, or would he find himself lost in the chaos? Jake's thoughts lingered on the conversation with Evan as he sat in his office that afternoon. The shadows from the high-rises outside seemed to stretch into the room, mirroring the oppressive weight of expectation he felt pressing against his chest. He hadn't anticipated how vulnerable he would feel after opening up about his past with Lucy. Each second ticking away reminded him that he was edging toward a pivotal moment in his life. He knew he couldn't postpone reaching out to her any longer. Running his fingers through his hair, he fought back a wave of dread mingling with anticipation. What if the conversation didn't go the way he hoped? What if revisiting their shared history only resurfaced old wounds that had never fully healed? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but there was an exhilarating undercurrent of possibility. This could lead him toward the person he was meant to be. Driven by that thought, he slid a piece of paper toward him and began drafting a message. Each word felt like a stone laid down in an uncertain path. We need to talk about our past. I've been thinking about everything. He hesitated, contemplating how to convey the complexity of his emotions. Suddenly, he stopped. This wasn't starting out as a conversation but rather a heavy declaration. Taking a deep breath, he deleted the message. Jake knew he needed to sound inviting, not demanding. He needed Lucy to feel the urgency he had grasped, a desire not merely for reconnection but also for mutual healing. Before he could second-guess himself, he typed again, "Hey Lucy, can we meet? There's so much I'd like to discuss. I think it's important for both of us." With a final pause to gather his thoughts, he pressed send, watching the words disappear into the void, unsure of what they would evoke. The minutes dragged on, each tick of the clock heightening his awareness of the vast emptiness of the room. Jake felt exposed and uneasy. It was both thrilling and terrifying, confronting a relationship that could potentially redefine not only his past but also his future. Suddenly, a reply pinged on his phone. He nearly jumped, his heart racing. "Sure, when?" Jake's pulse quickened as he typed back, a flood of relief washing over him. How about tomorrow after work? After setting the meeting, he glanced out the window and saw the sunset casting an orange glow over the skyline. He wondered if embracing this discussion could lessen the burden he felt. Perhaps it was time not only to revisit the past but to challenge the future he was afraid of facing. The next day, Jake arrived early at the cafe, his nerves coiling tightly like a spring. As he watched people bustle by, he thought about how they all carried their individual stories and conflicts, each a testament to their struggles and aspirations. He was no different. When Lucy walked in, his heart skipped a beat. Her eyes sparkled with an energy he had long missed, yet there was also a flicker of caution, a reflection of their shared history. She approached cautiously, and they exchanged greetings before finding a quiet table. "Jake, what's on your mind?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with the hint of underlying tension. He cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how much he had to unpack. This wasn't merely a familial discourse, it was the intersection of their hopes and regrets. "I wanted to talk about us. The way things fell apart, what it's meant for our family, for you and me," he began, unsure how to navigate the myriad of emotions clawing to be addressed. As he spoke, a sense of resolve began to unfurl within him, like a tight bud developing into a bloom. He realized he was not just discussing the past but seeking a roadmap for change. But just as the conversation started to converge on deeper issues, Lucy turned her gaze downcast, her silence weighing heavily. Something was amiss, something unsaid that threatened to alter the course of their discussion. The air of uncertainty thickened, and Jake's heart raced. What if the truth she held was a chapter he could barely bear? Would facing it deliver closure, or would it crack open new rifts? Realization washed over him. He had dared to open the floodgates, yet he was unprepared for the surge that could follow. The moment had come. Together, they would either find the strength to face the family legacy or risk shattering their fragile bond forever. Jake's heart raced at the sudden shift in the atmosphere, the tension thickening between them like fog rolling in off the coastline. He watched Lucy circle back to her thoughts, the emotional shield she'd carefully built over the years rising like a fortress. "Lucy?" he ventured, the tremor in his voice betraying his determination. "What are you thinking?" She finally looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm just afraid of where this conversation might lead us. We've both made mistakes, Jake. How can we possibly move forward from all that?" The weight of her words settled heavily over him. He had come prepared to swallow his pride, to embrace vulnerability in hopes of reconnection, yet the enormity of their history seemed to loom over them both. This was not a conversation pieced together by simple misunderstandings, it was the cumulative effect of years of heartache. "I know we've both hurt each other," he said slowly, carefully weighing his words. "But I believe we owe it to ourselves, more importantly, to our family, to try to peel back these layers and find out what really happened between us." The silence that followed felt deafening. He could see uncertainty flickering across her features, a mixture of memories both cherished and painful spiraling through her mind. He decided to address it head-on, unwilling to let another moment of hesitation slip through his fingers. "Lucy, you have to know that I've spent so much time running from this," he confessed. "Running from us. But I came to realize that burying my feelings didn't erase them, it only left me empty. I want to acknowledge the mistakes, not to dwell on them, but to learn." Lucy shifted in her seat, her expression softening ever so slightly. "Why now? Why confront all of this when it feels easier to just keep going?" Jake took a deep breath, he had anticipated her skepticism. "Because I don't want to keep living a lie. We deserve clarity. We deserve to be whole, even if it means facing the ugliness of our past." She nodded, but the walls still stood firm. "Jake, I appreciate your honesty. It's just hard. I feel like every step we take forward leads us back into old pain." The shift in her tone sent ripples of self-doubt through him. Had he been too bold? Was his quest for resolution sending them spiraling back into conflict? Desperate to anchor their discussion, he focused on the most grounded aspect, their family. "Maybe we can't change what has happened," he said, daring to be vulnerable. "But we can choose how we move forward. How are we meant to heal if we don't even confront what is holding us back?" For the first time, he caught a glimpse of her frustration simmering just beneath the surface. And what if confronting it only dredges up more pain? The sharpness of her voice quelled his resolve momentarily. Jake leaned closer, the cafe ambience fading to a dull hum as he fought to maintain his composure. "Then we face it together. That's the only way we can untangle this mess." A flicker of contemplation passed through her eyes. He recognized that she was grappling with the notion of risk versus reward. What if this was not merely a dialogue or reparation but also a path toward forgiveness, personal growth, and, ultimately, acceptance? The clock ticked, and the weight of possibility curled around them, fraught with vulnerability. Could they truly dismantle the barriers and uncover what lay beneath the turmoil? Just as their eyes locked in mutual contemplation, the sound of a chair scraping against the floor interrupted them. A newcomer had entered the cafe, casting a shadow over their intimate exchange. A familiarity washed over Jake. He recognized the man immediately. It was Evan, his earlier mentor, who had urged him to reconcile. "Jake!" Evan's voice boomed, trying to cut through the tension. "What is going on here?" Jake's heart sank as he realized that this potential cameo might send them spiraling into distraction again. He opened his mouth to speak, but the stakes had shifted dramatically. Would Evan's presence derail everything he had been building, or could this be an opportunity to demonstrate strength and resolve in front of someone who had always pushed him to be better? Jake could only hold his breath, stepping to the edge of uncertainty, waiting for Lucy's response. Would they collide with the shared burden of their past, or could this turn into a critical turning point for both of them? Evan's entrance became an electric jolt that cut through the heavy atmosphere. His jovial demeanor seemed to clash with the tension that had enveloped Jake and Lucy, creating an immediate shift in the space around them. Jake hesitated, instinctively pulling back into himself. This wasn't the time for a casual conversation. They were on the precipice of something profound, and he feared that Evan's vibrant energy might unhinge it all. "Hey, Evan," Jake managed, attempting to mask the surge of anxiety racing through him. He shot a glance at Lucy, who appeared equally caught off guard. Her expression flickered between uncertainty and annoyance, and Jake silently urged her to see this moment as a challenge, not a derailment. Evan walked over, oblivious to their silent struggle. "I just had to come and see how you two were doing. I knew you'd want to talk eventually." There was a soft, familiar warmth in Evan's tone, yet it struck Jake like an unwanted reminder of the stakes involved. "Yeah, we were just discussing some things," Jake replied, feeling the weight of his words dissolve into the cafe air. He didn't want Evan to interject, didn't he want to let him see the fractures in their fragile negotiation. Still, he knew Evan's intentions were pure, a guiding presence he had relied on for years. "Good. That's what I like to hear. Communication is key." Evan clapped his hands together, the sound sharp in the otherwise hushed cafe. "So, what are we talking about?" As he took a seat across from them, Jake sensed the walls Lucy had erected beginning to shift. The last thing he wanted was for her to feel exposed in front of Evan, but perhaps, in this moment, a different perspective might open up a path. "Honestly, we're trying to figure out how to move forward from our past," Jake admitted, the words spilling from him as if they had accumulated for far too long. Evan's eyes widened, seamlessly drawn into the weight of their dialogue. "Moving forward," Evan mused thoughtfully, nodding with understanding. "That's brave. But you need to ask yourselves, what does moving forward mean? Is it simply forgiveness, or is it also redefining what you want from each other?" Jake exchanged glances with Lucy, wondering if she recognized the truth in Evan's words. The crux of their conversation rested on the concept of boundaries and desires. Did they seek merely to coexist, or was there a deeper yearning for reconciliation? "It means confronting what hurt us in the first place," Lucy spoke up, drawing attention away from Jake with a newfound edge. We can't just brush aside the status quo. I can't pretend past mistakes don't exist. Exactly, Jake said, enthused by her boldness. We can face those wounds together, but we need to make sure we approach it in a manner where both our voices are heard. That can be hard, Evan interjected, his tone steady. Are you both ready to face the truths that may arise? The kind that might shake the very foundation of what you think you know about each other? The intensity of that question struck Jake directly. This was not just about deliberating on old grievances. It was about challenging the very frameworks of their relationship, forcing them to confront convoluted feelings they had both guarded for far too long. Jake nodded slowly, recognizing the critical importance of sincerity in their exchange. I'm ready to be completely honest. But it's Lucy who needs to feel safe in doing so. Lucy's brow furrowed as she grappled with this. Her hesitation was palpable, but Jake sensed a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. Would they dare to take the plunge together? With Evan's steady presence acting as a witness, Lucy took a deep breath. I suppose the hardest part for me is feeling vulnerable again. It's scary to think about what laying everything on the table might mean. Scary but essential, Jake murmured, clasping his hands together, feeling the relentless pull of the past tugging at him. We owe it to ourselves, to our family. Evan leaned back slightly, observing them with a shrewd expression. Then let us not waste time. Dive in. What is one thing you both can confront today? The air thickened with hesitation. Jake's pulse quickened, the question igniting a tumult of emotions. Would this serve as a turning point? Could they anchor their future in honesty rather than past missteps? Jake and Lucy exchanged a long glance, the stakes irrevocably higher. Just then, a sudden realization dawned on Jake. What if this was the moment that defined their legacy as a family, not just the healing of old wounds, but building something stronger from the ashes of their troubled past? Jake knew they stood at a crossroads, where acknowledging their deepest fears could either fracture them further or unite them in a newfound strength. Would they lean into that discomfort, courageous enough to unearth truths? Before he could voice that urgency, Lucy spoke, with a resolve that sent shockwaves through him. I want to share where I truly felt abandoned. This was it, the moment hung heavily in the air, promising revelations, but simultaneously threatening to unearth everything they had tried to bury. What would come next was certain to challenge everything he thought he understood about her, about himself, and about the future they might still create together. Lucy's voice lingered in the air, echoing like a distant thunder. Jake felt the weight of her admission press down on his chest. I want to share where I truly felt abandoned. The moment had arrived, yet it felt both exhilarating and terrifying. A shift was occurring, unfurling the tightly knit fabric of their shared history, revealing threads that were long overdue for confrontation. Evan leaned forward, his eyes keenly scanning both Jake and Lucy. The anticipation electrified the atmosphere, drawing everyone's focus. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the rising tide of emotions battling within him. Go ahead, he encouraged gently, aware that this was more than just a revelation, it was a gateway to understanding. I'm listening. Taking another steadying breath, Lucy's gaze drifted away briefly, as if seeking solace in the past. It was during the time you were so consumed by work and everything else, she confessed, her voice wavering slightly. I remember feeling like I was living in your shadow, watching from the sidelines as you focused on everything but me. A wave of guilt surged through Jake. He had always prioritized his ambition, often at the expense of the connections that mattered most. Had he really allowed Lucy to feel discarded? The realization stung. I never wanted you to feel that way, he murmured, a mixture of regret and empathy creeping into his voice. I know, she replied softly, her vulnerability disarming him. But knowing isn't enough when you're alone. I wanted us to be a team, to share successes and setbacks. Instead, I felt like I had to fight for your attention. Evan's expression softened as he observed them. He sensed the power of Lucy's words. With each admission, they were peeling away layers of misunderstanding and pain. "It sounds like you were both operating with different expectations," he noted. "Jake, have you considered how your drive impacts Lucy's sense of belonging?" Jake nodded, guilt morphing into introspection. "I guess I always thought my ambition was a way to provide for us, to build a better future. I thought you'd be proud." His voice trailed off, revealing the defensiveness embedded in his pride. "Proud, yes," Lucy said, with a hint of frustration. "But I wanted to feel valued beyond your achievements. That I mattered to you, not just as a partner but as a person." Each word felt like a hammer, shaping what had been an unspoken truth into clear definition. Jake felt the walls around him constricting, forcing him to confront his own shortcomings. Vulnerability was a double-edged sword, cutting through the bravado he clung to for so long. "Lucy," he finally said, "I want to understand. What can I do to support you better? How can we redefine our relationship so that you feel valued, truly?" He had expected the question to unlock clarity, but instead, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Lucy's features. I need to know that you're here, fully. That it's not just about the next big project or the next obstacle. It's about us, our life together." Jake processed her words. Life had become a series of checkboxes, meetings, deadlines, success markers. In that moment, he realized that he had unwittingly neglected the emotional metrics that held significance, the boxes that truly defined their relationship. "Okay," he affirmed slowly, feeling the ripple of commitment forming. "Let us prioritize our connection. I want to be present, and I will work on that," Evan interjected, his tone assertive yet supportive. "What you two are discussing is foundational. This isn't merely an issue of time, but of intention. Are you both ready to set mutual goals and expectations to foster that connection?" Jake glanced at Lucy, hoping she would find the strength within to articulate what she needed beyond his assurance. He had found the courage to confront his failures, now it was her turn. She drew in another breath, steeling herself. "I want us to create moments, the small ones, that remind us of who we are. Maybe start with a regular date night, something that's just ours." As Lucy voiced her thought, Jake realized with clarity that this was more than a compromise, it was the foundation of a new beginning, built not just on the echo of past grievances but woven through with shared intention. "Absolutely," he nodded earnestly, feeling the shift within himself as he began to fully embrace the future Lucy envisioned. Yet, amid their newfound intimacy, an uneasy tension fluttered just beneath the surface. Jake wondered what else lurked in Lucy's heart, what other layers had yet to be unearthed. "Is there something more deeper?" Jake asked gently, his curiosity piqued. As Lucy hesitated, a flash of conflict illuminated her eyes, stirring a fear within Jake. Was this just the tip of the iceberg, or was something more profound about to break through the surface, ready to redefine their understanding of love and commitment? He felt the weight of the moment settle between them, charged with potential and uncertainty. What would she reveal next? Would it reshape everything they had just begun to rebuild? The air thickened with anticipation, and Jake prepared for the shifting ground beneath his feet. The moment stretched out like a rubber band, taut with tension, waiting to snap. Jake's heart raced as he watched Lucy's expression fluctuate between hesitation and determination. This pivotal juncture was a test, not just of their relationship, but of his own evolution. It was a stark reminder of how vulnerable they both were. "Jake," she finally said, her voice steady but softening, "there's something deep inside that I haven't shared yet, something I need you to hear if we're going to truly move forward." The gravity of her words sank like a stone in his stomach. He could feel his instincts rallying. This was more than just a conversation. This was the pivotal moment where shadows from the past would either break them apart or bind them closer together. "Whatever it is, I'm ready," he asserted, trying to summon every ounce of sincerity in his tone, realizing that he had to embrace this moment fully. I've often felt like I was just a character in your story, Lucy began, her gaze piercing through the layers of his bravado. I was there, supporting you, cheering you on, but I was also invisible. Like my own dreams didn't matter as much as yours. Each word was a scalpel, peeling away his layers of defense. Her honesty struck at the very core of his self-perception, igniting a deep reflection. Had he been so consumed by his trajectory that he lost sight of her aspirations? Lucy, he started, but the impulse to defend himself faded as he recognized the truth buried in her statement. I want to be seen, not just as your partner but as an individual, she continued, each word deliberate. When I dreamed about our future, I imagined it including my ambitions, too. And I was scared to share those ambitions, thinking they might make me seem selfish or that they wouldn't fit into your world. I never wanted you to feel that way, he replied, pain threading through his voice. But you did, she countered gently. And she hesitated, taking a moment to compose herself. I never brought it up because I feared disappointing you or losing what we had. But keeping it inside only made me feel more isolated. What Lucy articulated was more than a mere feeling, it was a revelation that smacked of his neglect and unwillingness to evolve. How could he expect her to communicate her needs when he struggled to articulate his own vulnerabilities? I can change that, he promised, feeling a profound sense of urgency to redefine their dynamic. Let us talk about your dreams, Lucy. We need to create space for your ambitions alongside mine. I want to know everything you want because that matters to me. Evan shifted his focus between them, his presence looming like a silent mediator. Good, but it requires consistent action. You'll both have to create a new narrative, one that accommodates both your aspirations, he encouraged. Maybe explore what that means during those date nights. Jake nodded, considering the implications. Each moment they spent together had to reflect a balance, not just a retreat into the comfortable, but a venture into the unfamiliar, where vulnerability reigned. Yet, could he genuinely commit to sharing the spotlight with Lucy without retreating to old habits? What if I don't know where to begin? Lucy questioned, vulnerability interwoven with a hint of trepidation. We can start small, find those dreams that excite you. We could look into classes, workshops, or anything that lights a spark in you. It's about more than just date nights, it's shifting how we interact daily, he proposed, feeling the potential of their partnership shift beneath him. For the first time, he felt a flicker of inspiration, realizing that this wasn't just about fixing something broken, it was about cultivating growth. Empowering Lucy would empower him, allowing her brilliance to shine alongside his. Lucy looked at him, her eyes clear with determination. Let us do it then. Let us create something that's ours. But please, Jake, don't lose sight again. I want to be a part of this equally, deeply. The weight of responsibility anchored his resolve. I promise you, I'll work at it. I don't want to lose the most important person in my life again. But beneath that newfound resolve, Jake still sensed an unshakable anxiety lurking in the depths. They had unveiled their layers, yet what if those layers held further secrets still buried within them? What more would they have to confront? Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface. As he stared into Lucy's eyes, he wondered if there were other shadows cast by unspoken truths. Was their newfound commitment steadfast enough to endure the storms brewing below? Lucy, are there more moments you want to share? More fears? He asked, tilting his head with tentativeness. Silence enveloped them, thick with the weight of anticipation. What more could she reveal? What foundations would be shaken? In that charged silence, the reality of their revelations hung like a delicate thread, poised to snap or flourish. Lucy took a deep breath, visibly gathering her thoughts. There's something else, she began, her voice wavering. It's not just about feeling invisible in your life, Jake. It's the fear of feeling like I might always be the afterthought. The admission struck Jake with an unexpected force. He recognized the weight of her words, a truth he had unwittingly contributed to over the years. I want you to know, he said, a newfound determination coursing through him, that's not who I want to be anymore. I want to be your partner in every sense, someone who champions you every day. Lucy's gaze softened slightly, yet apprehension still flickered in her eyes. But how do we ensure that? How do I trust that change can be lasting? The question reverberated within him, stirring the fear of failure he had buried for so long. Through action, he replied, shaking off his insecurities. Change often requires not just intentions but commitments that are visible to both of us. We can set concrete goals, tangible actions to ensure that we continuously prioritize each other's needs. Evan interjected, leaning forward, his expression reflecting a mix of encouragement and seriousness. Intentions without follow-through are nothing more than promises made with the wind. What can those actions look like for you both, moving forward? Jake and Lucy exchanged glances, realizing this was not merely about verbalizing desires but creating a framework they could utilize to nurture their evolving relationship. How about we schedule regular check-ins? Jake proposed thoughtfully. A designated time to discuss our goals, our aspirations, where we both stand. That way, if something feels off, we have a safety net to address it before it spirals. Lucy considered this, a flicker of excitement igniting her expression. I like that. It creates an opportunity to recalibrate whenever we need to. She seemed to stand taller, empowered by the thought. Exactly, Jake added, feeling an infectious energy building. And as for your ambitions, let's discuss what steps you want to take, be it a class, a project, or simply a personal goal. I want to be there for you in pursuing whatever lights your fire. This was a pivotal moment. They were no longer the siblings drowning in their differences but partners ready to navigate this together, armed with shared intentions that went beyond dialogue. As they dug deeper into their action plan, Jake felt a surge of pride. They were building something substantial, exposed to the intricacies that constituted their bond. The past still loomed, but it no longer held power over them. It transformed into a guidepost, a reminder of where they had faltered and how they could flourish. But as the conversation continued, Jake sensed an underlying unease lingering in the backdrop. Lucy, he hesitated, unable to shake the concern that clawed at him. What's the one thing we haven't addressed yet? Is there anything that still feels unresolved between us? For a moment, Lucy's expression tightened. That flicker of worry returned, as if she had been holding something back. There's always something, she murmured, her resolve cracked as vulnerability spilled forth. I've held so many expectations I never voiced. I want to be free to live life authentically, but that fear of failing holds me back. I need to know I can voice anything without the risk of being seen as needy or demanding. Jake's heart ached at her admission. She was not merely expressing fears, she was revealing what could threaten their reconciliation if left unacknowledged. Lucy, he said earnestly, you can always express your fears with me. This is exactly what we're building, the space to share unfiltered emotions. Her eyes searched his with fierce intensity. What if I fail? What if I try and it doesn't work out? I couldn't bear to be an anchor weighing you down. Then let's fail forwards together, he insisted, determining to clear every shadow between them. Setbacks don't define us, they are moments where we learn and grow. And if we can't embrace those vulnerabilities, how do we ever break the cycle of silence we've surrounded ourselves with? The development in Lucy's expression revealed the battle she faced, an understanding vying for dominance against disbelief. Could you really embrace my shortcomings without resenting them? Not only that, I want to celebrate your journey, he reassured her. We'll cover every angle together. In that charged moment, Lucy's guardedness began to ebb away. She slowly nodded, the contours of her anxiety easing. The profound possibility laid before them illuminated the path forward, revealing a shared resolution to build trust on a foundation of open dialogue. As they stood teetering on the brink of transformation, the shadows of their past danced behind them, offering lessons rather than burdens. Together, they could light the way, forging deeper connections that transcended the complexities of their history. Evan, witnessing the profound shift, smiled warmly. It was a change that solidified bonds inextricably linking Jake and Lucy on a journey toward healing and personal growth. "I believe in both of you," Evan asserted softly, sensing how crucial this moment was for defining their legacy. "Every step you take strengthens your bond. It feeds the very essence of what you aspire to build." As they all took a breath, hope wove intricately through their dialogue. This was not merely about achieving goals or redefining roles, it was a commitment to each other's dreams, desires, and, ultimately, happiness. In that cafe, with sunlight streaming through the windows and the world bursting outside, Jake realized the true depth of personal achievement. It was no longer about simply lifting burdens but also about carrying the zest for life alongside one another. Their individual aspirations, intertwined, would weave the fabric of a future filled with trust, respect, and unyielding affection. Lucy looked at Jake, illuminated by clarity, lifting chains that held her in despair. "I'm ready to step out of the shadows and into the light together." "Yes," he agreed, merging their destinies with renewed commitment. "This is just the beginning." As they left the cafe, a renewed sense of purpose enveloped them. The past retained its lessons yet lost its dominance. The fruits of their hard-earned victories awaited them, gathered like precious strawberries ripe for the picking. It was not just a personal transformation, it was the thriving essence of rebirth. Together, they faced the horizon, carving out a new chapter destined for greatness, driven by authenticity and love. With one final glance back toward the past, both knew there would be no more shadows cast upon their future. As their story unfolded before them, it was time to embrace what lay ahead. Now, if you've resonated with this journey of transformation, don't leave it here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, be part of our exclusive community of emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to help us amplify this journey and feed the algorithm. Your support matters immensely. Comment your thoughts and theories about this journey and how you resonate with these themes. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need this inspiration in their lives. It's time for a wave of positivity that only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand. Don't wait even one more second to share.